found in 1957, and it was first entered by a guy called Cliff Speckman. And Cliff Speckman had heard about a hole in the forest floor, and there was wind coming out of this hole. And his little ears pricked up and his eyes opened, and he thought, oh, this sounds interesting. This sounds like it's going to be a cave. So he got his friend Tony Tapper to tie a rope around his waist, and Tony lowered Cliff down this hole in the forest floor. Okay, and that hole is this hole, right here. This was the only entrance to this cave, which is why we know the Aboriginal people of this area weren't using this cave. They weren't big on abseiling down holes like this, really. So, and also, you know, this hole here is 12 metres in length. So it's, and it doesn't go straight up and down, it wiggles around like this. So he really didn't know what he was getting lowered into when he got lowered down that hole. But when he did, he popped out and he landed on top of this little sand dune here. And he looked out around him and realised what a massive cave this was. And he wasn't too keen to untie the rope and go exploring it by himself. So he got his friend to pull him back up through that hole, and they kept it secret for a year. Okay, whilst they built a proper rope ladder, and they got some better lighting together, and a few friends, and they all came back a year later. They all came down this hole. They spent 9 hours down here and found just over 3 kilometres of cave. Right, so they said it was the most exciting day of their lives to come down here and explore this place that no one had ever been before. And they were finding skeletons of long extinct megafauna and things like that down here. Things like the thylacine and things like that down here, the Tasmanian tiger. They found 5 skeletons of the thylacine down here, and amongst other animals that we're going to also talk about and see later on as well. But all those animals would have fallen down that hole as well, like that. But when this tree dies, the root will die, that will rot away and it will leave a small hole. Then rainwater goes down that small hole, and over tens of thousands of years slowly dissolves the limestone, making the hole bigger. Big enough for us to come down, but also big enough for these animals to fall down. But if you follow my torch around this way, you'll see there's tree roots coming through over here as well. There's another one over here, there's a whole stack of them here. And then if you follow my torch around this way, you'll see there's tree roots here as well. Now these ones here, these are gathering the moisture out of the air, because it's always got 95% humidity down here, and it's always 17 degrees. Whether it's summer, winter, day or night, it is always the same temperature down here. Which is also the perfect temperature to store wine at too, apparently, so make quite a nice wine cellar down here, I think. But before we head off this platform here, let's have a quick look over this side. Because over here, stalactites. Now these stalactites are created when you get rain coming out of the clouds. It collects carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere on the way out, and that makes that water just a little bit acidic. Okay, then it hits the forest floor and starts seeping down through this limestone. So this limestone rock above our head here is like a big sponge, and it's full of water, and that water is dissolving calcium carbonate from the limestone along the way. Right? It brings that dissolved calcium carbonate all the way through to the end of a stalactite, and when it hits the oxygen again, it solidifies a tiny bit of calcite crystal on the end, making it a little bit longer. And when I say a little bit longer, these things are growing at a rate of about 1 centimetre every 100 years. Okay, so they're incredibly slow growing, these formations inside this cave. Even a big stalagmite like this one here would have been growing at 1 centimetre every 100 years as well. So they are just really, really slow growing. It's hard to wrap your mind around the time scale that all this is happening here. But just next to that stalagmite, you might see a long skinny thing hanging from the roof there, a couple of long skinny things. And this stalagmite here weighs 27 tonnes. Right, because this calcite crystal is really heavy stuff. It's a lot heavier than concrete. Okay, but if you want to know how hard this rock is, well, the hardest rock we know is a diamond, and that is 10 on the hardness scale. And your fingernails are a 2.7. This rock is a 3. Right, your teeth are a 5. So it's not as hard as your teeth, but it's harder than your fingernails. Right, that makes it really fragile stuff. Okay, but if you imagine that one there is 27 tonnes, but again, this was created by that dripping stalactite above it there. But that is tens of thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands, of years of just the moisture in the air causing the calcite crystal to grow outwards, forming these beautiful things like this. So, and like I say before, that's why this cave is really special. It's in really good condition. We've got another formation over here, which is sometimes called Cave Bacon, but is also called a shawl. And shawls grow because you've got a sloping bit of roof, or a sloping bit of wall in this case, and a trickle of water has trickled down that slope, and as it did that, it deposited a tiny bit of calcite crystal. Then one trickle after the other over a couple of 100,000 years, and that starts to build up to form these shawls like this. And it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you're wiggling along on your stomach. I think so. That's why I got a job here, because I was like, what's down there? I think I want to go down there. That leads for nearly a kilometre in that direction. You've got to wiggle along in your hands and knees for some of it, but then other times it opens up into some quite big caverns under there. Eventually it leads all the way along until it comes to Moondime Cave, which is the next cave along. You can't actually access that cave from this cave. It's only a small wind hole that's coming through from Moondime Cave. You know, they became extinct off the mainland of Australia 3,500 years ago, because 5,000 years ago dingoes came through. There was a red line just there, you might have seen it. It was around about here somewhere. And do you remember that picture of the guy sitting in his boat at the surface I asked you to remember? That's exactly where he was sitting. And that line, before it disappeared, was where the water level was. So that photo was taken in 1959. So the water has really disappeared out of this cave. It started to disappear in the mid-1980s, and it was all gone by 1993. You can see different textures. So we've actually had less rainfall in this area over the last 40 years than we ever have in recorded history. Now that might be a 40-year drought, or it might be the new normal for us. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. But also up on the surface, things have changed a lot. What used to be native bushland is now tree farms and vineyards, and lots of people putting bores down, bringing groundwater to the surface. And that has had a big impact on our water table around here, especially those tree farms. You know, they grow a type of tree there called a Tasmanian blue gum, which is a beautiful tree, and it grows really fast, and you can use the wood for lots of things, but it's an extremely thirsty tree. Because it has come from Tasmania, it just expects a higher rainfall than we have here, and that has really had a big impact on our water table around here. But also above this cave, we haven't had a bushfire above this cave for several decades now, and the bush up there is really thick at the moment. So any rain coming from above really doesn't get a chance to soak down through the limestone before it's used by those extra plants. And you can really see that at the moment if you go to Lake Cave, because they had a bushfire above Lake Cave 2 years ago, and a year after the bushfire, the water level inside that cave started to rise. And it rose up over a metre in 10 months, and it's now at the highest water levels it's had in over 70 years. just over here, guys, we've got pendulates. These things over here. Okay, like I say, only 5 caves in the world that have pendulates, so they are really rare cave formation because you need a lot of different things to come together to form pendulates. Okay, so when there was water in this area, there was calcite crystal floating on top of the water. And when that calcite crystal came in contact with the bottom of one of these straws, it would stick to it. And then over tens of thousands of years, that built up and formed this blob of rock just there. But the other thing that I do love in this chamber, and the next one as well, is all the stuff happening on the roof, on the ceiling around here. I mean, look at these things right here. But you've got things up here called helictites. These long ones here with a bit sticking out to the side. They're helictites, which were a cave mystery for a long time. But now they think what's happening here is that tube has got blocked somehow, and the pressure of the water coming down from above has caused it to burst out to the side until that gets blocked, and then it bursts out somewhere else. That's that was related to possums. So it was like a 120 kilo, 2 metre long possum that had a really big jaw and big teeth because it used to eat giant wombats. So I'm pretty glad those things aren't around anymore. Otherwise no one would be camping in the bush. But yeah, it just can be a real snapshot through time as to all the different creatures that have walked through this forest, and also through you can tell weather patterns for hundreds of thousands of years, because you can take core samples of a stalactite and you can see, because they grow in layers, and with water you can see when there's been periods of high rainfall and low rainfall just from stalactites. So, you know.